Good afternoon. Welcome to the Crucible Studio and the Sheffield Documentary Festival 2012. My name is Will Garbutt. I work at Prime Focus, who are sponsors of the event this year and have been very supportive of the Sheffield Documentary Festival from the get-go. Prime Focus are a global company based in the US, UK, and indeed India and Canada. We deal with all sorts of post-production, film commercials, and a lot of broadcasts, mainly in the UK. So we're very proud to be involved in this festival. So on to today's little seminar. Look and laugh, look and learn, look at legends. I'm going to just introduce you to my boss and our commercials director, Sarah Hill, who is going to be talking to Rosie Bowen Jones about the first topic. So I'm going to hand you over to her. Thanks very much.
Hello everybody, thank you very much for coming along. So today's session is basically three separate sessions showcasing three quite different topics to show you the range of things we do, which I hope will be useful to you. First of all, I'm going to be talking to Rosie Bowen Jones, who was the series producer on Driving Me Crazy, which is a very entertaining series that is on Discovery Real Time at the moment. Rosie's had a very long history of some huge successes in her past. And I think before we talk about the series, the easiest thing to do is to actually show you the trailer, because then you'll know what we're talking about. So we're going to show you a trailer. It's only about a minute long, so sit back and enjoy. I forgot we were showing this first. This is the promo for Prime Focus. Actually, that little film, if any of you have attempted to scan the QR code on the back of your pass, it will take you straight to that little film. So, anyway, moving along, back to where we were. So now we're going to show you the trailer for the series Driving Me Crazy.
There are good drivers, there are bad drivers, and then there are these drivers. Oh my God. But there may be hope for these hopeless learners, because they're going to be taught to drive by their long-suffering nearest and dearest. They're going on a 5-day, 150-mile road trip before facing the mother of all driving tests.
Stop!
It's the ultimate relationship road test.
Oh my God!
And if that wasn't hard enough, they'll be doing it in this. A 2.5-ton, 15-foot-long classic camper van. There'll be bumps, breakdowns,
I don't know where to go!
and total meltdowns.
I'm getting pretty fed up with it myself.
Are they on the road to glory?
I said I can't do it. End of, can't do it.
Or will it all just drive them crazy?
So that gives you a nice little overview of what we're going to talk about. So Rosie, how did you come to be involved in this series?
Well, I'm a freelance series producer, and Driving Me Crazy was developed by John Rowlands at Renegade Pictures, and was commissioned by Discovery, 8 1-hours. And actually, when I got on board, the exec is Lucy Hooper. And when I joined, luckily I joined quite early, because often as a series producer, you get involved in productions quite late in the day when a lot of decisions were made. I got involved, we had a month before our first shoot, which was fantastic, because it gave us time to adapt the treatment, which was pretty good actually. and then research how we were going to shoot this, because it was people who had not passed their driving test ever, who'd never had, some of them had never even had any lessons, who wanted to learn to drive, and the casting team did a fantastic job to find a real mixture of people so we could sort of mix them up, because each program had to have 2 parallel stories intercut with 2 pairs of people with different relationships. They could be friends, they could be a father and his daughter, mum, son, cousins, all sorts of different relationships, who would start their journey at a certain point where they lived and would meet up with the other pair driving also, where they would do a test that we had devised for them, which was very authentic. So over a period of 5 days, they covered about a total of 150 miles. So it took a lot of setting up in terms of finding, where we would get the camper vans from, whether we would buy them, whether we would hire them, how we would best do that. The whole insurance issue was mega, as you can imagine, and also just finding the best ways to shoot, which I'll talk about later, and how we rigged them. But so it was actually a big job, and we had a month to set it all up. We shot the first one with 2 parallel stories being filmed at the same time, each with a whole crew on, with 5 cameras on each van. And then had 3 weeks to do a rough cut of that first one to work out, were we filming too much, had we got the right sort of cameras, were the balance of cameras right, because as you could see from that...
Now, were we filming too much? This series had something quite different about it. You know, your average shooting ratio, is about 50 to 1, maybe 100 to 1. The average shooting ratio for the show was about 350 to 1.
Yes, it was...
It ranged from 300 hours per show to 400 hours per show. So how did you come to choose the camera? What cameras did you choose?
Oh, well, the main... for the... I thought we were going to show a clip, actually, first.
Do you want to do the clip first?
Yes, can we just show
sure.
a clip, and then I can go into how we rigged and why we chose the cameras that we did.
OK, can we show the next clip?
Calm down.
I don't know what you're saying. You're not talking properly.
Well, calm down. You've just been doing it for all that fucking way yesterday.
Matthew sat next to me going, Emma, you did this yesterday. Come on, you did it yesterday. What's up with you? So he got me all flustered because I just wanted to do it first time like every other driver does. I felt like such a massive failure.
When you're ready, release your handbrake when you're ready.
I'm waiting.
Fuck's
Right,
sake.
where am I going after this?
We're going to go into the left-hand lane.
Where's that?
I don't know. Up your ass.
Right, well, as soon as
Fucking
I
hell.
find a place to pull over, we're done.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are. You can get shoved.
Well, as you can see from that, they completely forgot that the camper vans were cameraed up. It was extraordinary that people forget these things, but and also that every time we stopped or started, a camera assistant would go and kind of check the batteries or check that it hadn't lost focus, the cameras hadn't lost focus or whatever. But in the beginning, we obviously set about finding who would be the best people to provide us with the cameras. And we went to SCADA, a guy called Martin Davidson, who was absolutely brilliant.
He's amazing. He's about 84, but
yes,
he's astonishing.
He was so knowledgeable and spent so much time with us working out for our purposes what we needed. And so in the end, we plumped for a GoPro, which we used just for the exterior shots, the POV shots of where the van was going, with special mounts. Obviously, it's not any good in low light, but for the shots that we needed, it did a really good job. For the in-camper van cameras, we used the Sony MC1s, which for us worked really well because we could put a wide-angle lens on for that two-shot. Its opposition was the Panasonic, which is good and better quality than the Sony, but we couldn't put the wide-angle lens on it. So that was really important for us, that it was a wide angle for that two-shot, which was crucial to show both the learner and the person who was teaching them, but it wasn't a fisheye. And for us, that swung the decision to use that particular camera, because I think on Dangerous Roads, which was another renegade. They used the Toshiba camera, and they had a lot of problems with those because they lose focus quite easily if they're knocked. And of course, when you're driving on a rough roads, you've got people slamming on the brakes like they did. We had to make sure that they were really properly mounted, and Martin did a lot of research for us in finding the best ways to mount the cameras, and we had to tie them down because we had an HD cable that was going from the two MC1s to the nano flashes, which were on a board under the passenger seat, which, you know, that anything that would knock that would cause us problems. So we did a lot of practice runs with the crew. And just to quickly say that we went to one particular crewing company who both provided us with the vans and with the camera crews. That was Cruit, and they did a really good job as well. But it would have been better to have had the same camera assistants throughout, because they had a quite an important rigging job, and if you got someone on
and a media management job as well, backing it all up.
Well, they actually had to log everything, log all the cameras, because we had two different vans travelling at all times. It was very important for when we ingested the material that there was a really proper logging kept of all the different cameras, and so it was their job. And then we had data wranglers, a data wrangler with each van, a camera assistant with each van, and a runner with each van, whose job it was to get the vans from A to B and load the vans with everything.
Because you also had cameras, you also had cars behind filming the vans, and then you also had directors in the field.
Yes,
filming.
We had the crew vehicle followed the vans at all times, and we had comms between the director and the person who was instructing, so that if anything went wrong or we wanted to make things happen more excitingly or less excitingly, they could communicate, obviously. Next to the director was the cameraman who was shooting as well from the back, and we actually had to get rid of disable the bags, because obviously if they'd had to brake hard, the bag would have come up, and that obviously is a tricky thing when you're shooting from a car, which anyone who's done any in-car filming knows that it's always a problem to how best to do that.
Shall we go to the next clip?
Yes.
The next clip is one of my absolute favourites, a series of clips actually, some two amazing characters. But it's a really good example of how all this footage fits together. So can we run the next clip? Enjoy.
Just a tiny little bit of acceleration.
What about the brake?
Just a tiny little bit, don't ask questions.
Michael must now bravely steer his way across 150 miles and Tony's driveway.
This is a father-in-law and son-in-law to be.
Clutch down a little bit. Let's just get back the other way. Back the other way. Back the other way. Whoa. Round the other way. Get away from that motor. Right.
In Wiltshire, Tony is preparing for the day by kicking back amongst the local wildlife.
For fuck's sake. What's going on here? You can't wear that all day. You having a laugh?
No.
You can't wear that. We're driving.
Yeah, I wear it.
You serious?
It's all right.
It's got ears on it, Michael.
So, in the name of male bonding, Tony's transformed himself into a dog, or possibly a bear. Or is it a monkey?
Oh, my Lord.
Mate, you got to join them, haven't you?
Oh, I love that clip. But that episode hasn't gone out yet, so you can still watch the whole episode, which I highly recommend.
Yeah, no, they're great, those two. They did... it was very interesting, actually, just quickly to digress, with the characters who took part, because a lot of the time they did need to get to know each other, or they wanted to refresh their relationship, or they really got on each other's nerves, and we had a big problem with the Welsh sisters, who ended up hating each other more than sisters normally do.
Which is the next clip. Shall we show that?
Yes,
okay, the next clip, please.
Yeah.
With the girls fully refreshed, the atmosphere at least is improving in their camper.
Go. How long does this thing go? looks like that.
Can you see the food on that?
No, I can't. There's nearly killed someone else in it.
Oh no, it looks fantastic though, doesn't it?
No.
Go, he's letting you go, Ed. Right, you didn't check your mirrors, and no, look who you nearly killed.
So, yeah, so they didn't go particularly well. So, so all the media came back to us, and we had to develop a system of dealing with it. Now we've got 30 offline suites, and we've got quite a big machine room where we have a number of workstations so we can ingest simultaneously, and we work 24 hours a day. So we've got a team of 9, I think, 9 or 10. 13, there we go. 13 people that work round the clock, which we had to do for this project to get it in, because we had a vast amount of footage to deal with. So basically the footage came into us on drives. It was excellently logged, which isn't always the case. So Freya is an excellently organised team. Thanks to Will Cross, the production manager, who was a legend. And we instantly transferred it all to nearline storage. Then it would be transcoded down to offline resolution. And then we'd use 5 or 6 stations overnight to get it all in as quickly as possible, so we could get that stuff in very quickly. The big problem at first was the GoPro, because GoPro historically has been very hard to get into, Avid in particular. When it first came out, it used to take about 10 hours, and then it went down to about 3 or 4. That's 3 or 4 hours per hour of footage. Now, for something like this, that obviously wasn't sustainable. So the team did an awful lot of experimenting and developed a workflow, which I believe is still quite is bespoke to us. I don't think anyone else has quite figured out our trick, and I'm not telling you what it is. You have to come and use this to find out. But we can now ingest GoPro in real time, running time, which was a massive step forward. So that made it much quicker. So that's how we got it all in. Once it was all in, because it was on the nearline storage, it meant that when we went back to do the conform, there was just a direct file path straight back to the drive. So the conforms relinked very easily. If you have to huck up a drive each time and take it away again, it confuses the computer. It's very hard to find that original file. But if all the high-res media is stored on nearline storage, then it means that we can very easily track back to that, and the conforms all went pretty smoothly. So we then graded, online, mixed. Ronnie Newman did most of the online and grade. It was all done in Symphony because it was quite fast turnaround. And Liam did the sound.
Yes, we had, as you can imagine, there's a lot of swearing, and very inventive swearing, some of it. And we'd start with, the first dub we did was with the pre-watersheds, and we used campervan horn to beep, and it actually made it even funnier. But we did the post-watershed dubs, and I don't know who did it and what happened with the pre-watershed ones in the end, actually. But there was a heck of a lot of swearing in those shows, because people completely forgot again.
I guess they're going to be going out. They'll probably go out on sort of for international sales.
Yes, yeah. But apparently in Scandinavia, they want all the swearing possible for Scandinavian transmissions. So, great.
Has anyone got any questions? We want to make this quite interactive. If there's any questions about this, there are so many stories we can tell for this, and we've got another clip to show, which I'm going to save to the end, which is quite a good example of different footage, and it's another amusing clip. But we've got about 10 minutes to talk about various different things, but we're very happy to... over here?
Just to get back to where exactly...
Can you say your name?
Linda Streger from Toronto, Canada. Where exactly were all your cameras? You said you had 5 running? So
yes, there were the 2 Sony MC1s which were mounted on the dashboard. One was on a single shot of the driver, the learner driver, and the other was on a 2-shot. Then there was the GoPro, which was attached to the front looking out as the POV shot. And then the crew camera was following with another vehicle, was the XD cam. And then the AP had another camera to leap out if anyone stormed off, which happened several times, and the AP was able to sort of race off or go ahead if we knew there was a tricky bit of road coming up. the AP in the production car could whip on and be set up to see them as they careered round the corner or did whatever it was that we were expecting them to do. Because every route was recce'd thoroughly in advance, so we knew exactly what the hazardous road conditions might be that would test our drivers. That was obviously part of the story, really.
Actually, we've got 2 clips left, and the next one actually shows that. It's Rhiannon and Brian.
Oh, yes,
Do you want to show that one?
Yes,
That actually gives you... Can we show the next one, please?
Don't worry, don't panic.
Learner Rhiannon is about to tackle her first busy dual carriageway.
Keep an eye on your mirror. Yeah, indicate right. Okay, now to third. Keep going, keep going. Excellent! Yes! I'm still alive when we got onto the 846.
Really, really daunting. All these things coming past you at such quick speeds.
So we needed all those cameras. It just did help. And also we sometimes did the technique where in the edit you kind of get slightly repeat it so that you get a sequence sort of that's elongated really if something, you know, really hairy is happening, because we've got so many different angles to go to, which was brilliant actually. That really helped.
I love the way you've intercut that with the interview, because to see her all stressed and about to cry and then her looking all normal, it actually really shows just how stressed she was.
Yes, that's right. I mean, obviously we put the retrospectives in later, and it wasn't something that initially we were going to do, but it's something that happens, obviously, as you know, a lot. And it's from the States, and it's sort of the technique that we now use much more in British television. And we weren't quite sure about it because we thought it would take away from being in the moment. And I think you can still debate that, actually, because you're cutting away to these retrospective interviews, you know they're all right, they didn't have a crash. And just saying that, it was incredible that there were no accidents whatsoever.
It's
absolutely
quite amazing.
Every time the phone went, because I was in touch with the directors on location all the time, and every time I thought, oh my God, I hope nothing's happened. I mean, we had breakdowns and various things like that happen, but no really nasty accidents, which was miraculous, actually.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I just want to build off that. Any audio challenges?
The audio was the sound recordist with the MC1s. They were not radio. He rigged them to a recorder at the back of the camper van so that we had good, proper sound from those in camper van cameras. And obviously the other cameras had their own sound anyhow. But we put the mics again on the top of the windscreen. Again, very, very securely. Everything had to be absolutely securely, nailed down, because it would all jiggle and move and you'd get real problems. So we had to make sure. But no, actually, it worked really well, I have to say.
So your audio was good from there. You didn't have to mic anybody?
No, we put them. They weren't mic'd. I mean, obviously, when they were outside the camper vans, then we quickly mic'd them if we needed to, or boom it. But inside the camper vans, the mics were on board, basically, going to a recorder at the back of the camper van. Okay. But each camera obviously recorded its own sound for reference as well. GoPro does, as well as the same they do as well.
Any other questions? Okay, shall we show... Oh, one more over here.
Hello, Gail from BBC. I'm just wondering how you ran your offline edit with all of that material coming in. How did you choose, how did you cut it down, basically, and how long did you have to edit?
Well, what happened is the directors on location and were logging, and they would report back to me what the main storylines were every day. So we knew what the main points were that we were going for, basically to cut against each other, because we had the two parallel stories, the orange camper van and the green camper van. So we were very aware of where those stories were going in advance, but also we logged as well. So the programs with each shoot was really well logged in terms of logging the two-shot camera, which was very important because that was the main one for the action in the camper vans. So, but obviously there was a heck of a lot of material to get through, which, you know, but again, we knew what the XD camera, what the crew camera were getting because they were doing the set pieces. So when we did the driving test, that would be covered by the crew camera. When we did what we called rest stops, where we would get them to go and do some fishing, something that was part of their story that helped them bond or was part of their road trip. Because the other thing about this, it's very much a kind of road movie. Discovery have a blanket agreement for music, so we were able to use commercial music, which was fantastic. So to get that feel of them going on of all sorts of journeys, an emotional journey themselves to their relationship, but also the road trip idea of going, you know, through some beautiful countryside and stopping off to do various things on the way. But those were shot with the, you know, with the XD cam so we knew what those sequences were.
I have to say the team was phenomenally organised.
Yes.
I mean, you need to be for this kind of show,
Yeah.
but you don't see this organisation on most shows, let alone a show this complicated.
Yeah.
And the edits didn't really overrun, did
No,
they?
they didn't. It was 5 weeks edit per
overrun.
episode, yeah.
We've done shows far less complex that have overrun far more than that. The edit didn't overrun. It was a fantastic team. Everyone was very calm. It's just superbly organised. So well done.
Yeah, well, we did have a really good team, which was great. Really good.
I've got one more clip, and then we're pretty much there. But this is also very funny. But this was a nice one because it gives a really good example of all the different camera angles and how it really cuts together to kind of create that emotional intensity. So enjoy this.
Let's get this clutch control nice as well.
Rhiannon has made it 10 miles, but Alex has managed just 5 in London's rush hour traffic.
Shut the fuck up.
I'd stalled, and a split second later the guy was on the horn. It's starting to make me panic, but it's also making me very, very angry.
Don't worry. Who cares what he thinks? Fuck off. Don't worry. Ignore them. Turn the engine on. Right, go into first gear.
That was not cool, but they've gone now. It's cool. It's cool.
I'm not sure we're going to get there before it gets dark.
After 3 hours, Alex and Ellie have finally escaped from London. But have they found the way to their campsite? Well, no.
Right, go round. Oh no, never mind. Fine.
What?
Well, Seven Oaks was to the left.
It is quite difficult to follow a map, look at signposts, look at what Alex is doing, tell him how to drive properly. I've never been very good at multitasking.
Oh shit, maybe I'm not where I thought we were.
Essentially, we're now lost.
So I think I would quite like to stop and read the map. So yeah, pull in here, slow down a lot more. I don't know where we go next.
No, they didn't have sat-nav, obviously. That would have made it much too easy.
Oh, thank you very much, Rosie.
Well, thank you all very much for coming.
So my next guest is Jacqui Edwards. If you'd like to come and join me. Jacqui Edwards is a highly sought-after freelance archivist, currently working for Notopia. She completed an MA in film archives and began her career at Granada Television. She's been freelance ever since, and she specialises in social and military history. And she's had her work cut out for this past few years.
Yes.
But I'm going to stand up initially for this bit because this session is a little bit different. For this session, we're going to talk about archive and how to incorporate archive into programmes. Yesterday's experience from the land to the sea beyond show that archive can be both amusing and deeply moving and strongly resonate with today's audience. This segment is about how to put those shows together. There have been recent examples where the consequences of not getting it right can lead to extra post-production costs of tens of thousands of pounds, which can be easily avoided. What a lot of people seem to have forgotten or aren't being trained to know is that despite the increasing sophistication of editing equipment and digital workflows, one basic tenet still holds when moving from offline to online. We're going to go a little bit technical, but not too technical. An edit timeline is comprised of tape numbers and timecode, or unique clip number IDs for file-based material. When you're working in an offline resolution, which is a low resolution, and we're moving into an online resolution, which is a high resolution, you have to get from one to the other. And the only way that you can do that is by relating the clip numbers and the timecodes from the offline resolution to the online resolution. There is no other way to do it. There is no magic. There is no way. You literally just have a tape with a timecode or a clip that match, and that's how you do it. A lot of people seem to don't realise this is the case. So if you download a clip from YouTube and someone says, oh, I need that clip, there's absolutely no way of working out where that clip, how to find that clip again. In the olden days, a few years ago, the workflow was very straightforward. Basically, archive libraries had their masters on tape. They would make VHS copies of them. They would have burnt-in timecode that matched the timecode of the tape. They would send you a VHS. You would cut the material into your program, and you would say, I would like tape number 76 of Nazi marches, and I want the clip running from this timecode to that timecode. They would send you the clip or the master, you drop it into the program, and that was it. Remarkably straightforward. Sadly, the advent of digital technology has not made this any easier. It's made it much, much harder because it's one of those situations where just because you can do something doesn't mean to say that you should, and this is how to help you avoid this. What happens now is that libraries compile their footage to DVDs without accurate matching timecode to the master material. So when the master footage arrives, it doesn't bear any relation to what you've got. The DVD is the source. That is your high-res material. DVDs have no timecode, so it's very difficult to actually find a shot on a DVD. People send you screeners, and then they assemble the shots that you've chosen together with absolutely no reference to what you had before, so you have no way of finding it. They send you a stack of 3 to 5 drives and say, this 5-second clip is on these drives. They don't give you a list or have any way of finding how to do it. It can take hours, days sometimes, to actually locate a 5-second clip unless that information is logged. You can download footage from a website and then you have to iMatch it in. So this is how to avoid this. We've had situations in the past few months where people haven't done this, and it really is a false economy. One of the very strict workflow rules should be at the end of any heavy archive show. If you're working at online resolution, that's fine. It's not a problem. If you're working at offline resolution, you're going into an online situation, then you need to leave a gap of at least a week.
At least. At
least. Usually longer, between picture lock and the final online. And picture lock is a bit of an outdated expression. I know commissioning editors seem to have forgotten the meaning of it these days, but picture lock means picture lock because the archivist has to order the archive, and that can take a few days.
Anything from 1 day to 2 weeks.
2 weeks to arrive. And then you've actually got to cut that material in because it generally isn't provided very well. So that's my lecture over. I'm now going to sit down and we're going to talk to Jacqui, who made this very complex procedure work absolutely blindingly simply. We had an archive show, we were doing the post, we discussed it, we'd worked on another series which had been a little bit hit and miss.
Yeah, well, we did 2 90-minute films back to back, both of which had about 45 minutes of archiving. The first one, I think, took 2 weeks to do final post, which we were paying for all at online time, all at online expense. The second one, I think, took 2 days.
Yeah.
So the difference is
gives
between...
gives you an idea of how much money you can save. We've got a few clips. There's a few different clips that we can show. A lot of people don't realise also that when you're ordering 4x3 archive material, old archive material, the size of the material is actually very different to what it's going to be, to how it's going to be shown. So can we show the first clip?
What defines the Aryan is really their look, their appearance, right? So they're strong, they're powerful, they're muscular, they are blonde, they are brave in battle.
It's kind of like a comic book. They're going to be superheroes, Superman.
The Aryan mythologists started to describe the new martial warrior type as some kind of blonde beast lusting for booty and prey.
So those clips that you saw, that is the actual size of the clip in a HD screen. And so obviously you're cutting to a full-size picture. So you literally have to blow that picture up. And in doing that, it softens, degrades.
Yeah.
And you lose some quality. So that's why it's best to get as good a quality as you can. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Those two actually both came from DVD, which we blew up to Digibeta before we started the offline. So those were always edited at full resolution, which saved us a lot of time in the meantime. The first clip you saw with the guy with the horns on his head was actually, that one took quite a long time to work out who the copyright owner was. We bought it from a German website. Took us quite a long time just to speak to the person who was in charge of the German website. When they got back to us, they told us that they thought the rights were Russian, despite the fact the film was made in Germany in 1923 by Germans. But it turned out that the only surviving print was actually in the Russian Federal Archives, who were asserting copyright over it. In those instances, it's, you could make an argument about copyright, but we just decided it was best to find someone to pay in Russia and get a license agreement, which is what we ended up doing. But that whole process was fairly laborious.
That's why it can take weeks and weeks. Do you want to talk about how we actually, what the workflow we actually decided upon, how it actually worked?
Across the whole film.
Yeah.
Well, we had such a mix of formats and sources, and also different types of archive. That we had obviously the black and white you saw there. We had plenty of marching Nazis, as you might expect in a 90-minute film. We had stock shots from places like Getty Images. What else did we have? I think that pretty much covers it.
We had some film. We did some telefilm.
Oh yes, some old stuff that we got from the German Federal Archives, which came from 35mm, so that was all good fun.
Nice to get a bit of original film.
Yeah.
But what we decided fairly early on, because we had some very detailed meetings before this whole process started, which is always a good thing to do. Please, please, please have a discussion with your post house before you start these kind of projects, is that as much of the footage as possible would be compiled onto a single HD tape. And there was also some NTSC material. So anything that was the American NTSC standard had to be converted to PAL. And those time codes don't match, obviously, because they're different frame rates. So we had a separate tape, sub-tape, of all the converted material that was converted to PAL, and that was assembled onto a separate tape.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and a lot of people don't realise this, and I think it was this project that really sort of hammered it home to me, that even when you go to somewhere who are very sort of user-friendly and customer-focused, like Getty Images, for example, they only have their masters on one format, which is the format that they receive it from their suppliers. Invariably, 29.97 frames per second, 23 frames per second, pretty much anything except 25i, which is what we needed. So we had to make sure that we had a log of that. And what I tend to do now, every time I download a clip from one of these places, I actually write it in the clip name, what the master format is. So as soon as I see an EDL picture lock, I can look down that and I know exactly how much needs to be converted. So rather than do each clip individually, trying to convert it using software, we loaded all of the NTSC masters into a Final Cut project at 1:1, played it out 1:1 to HD Cam NTSC, and then did an Alchemist conversion. So we had an HD PAL master tape in all the correct specs, and we could just eye-match that. It was an eye-matching job, so it wasn't perfect, but we had captioned each individual clip so that we could at least match up the clip names on screen to the clip names in the timeline.
But the important thing is you eye-matched it in the offline.
Yes, that was
as opposed
key.
to trying to eye-match in the conform.
Yeah.
So although initially something was expensive, have doing that separate process, but the cost of not doing that would have been vast, because even for you to eye-match it in the offline, how long did it take?
It probably took, the whole process of doing the conversion was maybe a day or two. Then we had our editor, the same editor who'd cut the film, who knew the program inside out. He came in for a day maybe and did the eye matching.
So that probably cost about maybe £1,000?
Yeah, I would say
altogether?
so. We were editing in-house. We did all the offline in-house, so that wasn't a huge cost, the offline suite. It was the editor's time and my time and some conversion.
So if that had happened in Final Post, that would have cost probably triple that, at least.
Plus, we would
just
have,
for that section.
You would have had to do the conversion for us.
Yeah.
Which would have, we would have had to wait for you 2 days maybe to farm it out or do it in-house.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been done all in one block. It would have been done as these things were noticed, going through a 90-minute film. It wouldn't have all happened on the same day. So it was good. It was the schedule reminded me of schedules in about 2000, where there was always just routinely a break. The sort of good old days of 8-week offlines for an hour film. And people look at schedules these days, and on paper, this down period doesn't look feasible. It doesn't look sensible, but not having it is even less sensible.
No, completely. Should we show another clip? Yeah. Rather than show you marching Nazis, which you've all seen, the joy of this film is that... do you want to say a little bit what the film was about?
It's about Nazi ideology, how they used ideas of religion and race to justify their crimes, particularly how Himmler drew on old mythology to create this new religion.
Which is obviously completely fake, but
yes.
So Jacqui found some astonishing footage, which is very weird and wonderful. So here's another clip.
The Nazis also established festivals celebrating German history and culture. In this elaborate pageant, men are dressed as medieval knights. Next to them are the modern-day knights of the SS.
A lot of the sense of German national identity really is based on history, and the Nazis play on that, right? They want to sort of recreate, or they want to instill a new form of national identity, so they pick certain bits and bobs from the German past that sort of suits their particular gospel.
That was astonishing footage.
Yeah,
Colour.
that's actually a couple of different parades. Pageants of German art. The whole idea was that they were harking back to this this German past that obviously didn't exist, but they were all supposed to have come from Iceland, and they were all this warrior race, and this was celebrating the art of this warrior race that obviously had never really existed. And that's from 2 sources, I think, one in Germany and one in America. And the good thing is now, what I find I'm doing increasingly with NTSC material that I get in now is there's so much freeware available that I can do the NTSC conversions on my desktop before putting stuff into the edit. And that's really quite cool, because I can get an NTSC DVD. Normally I would have had to send it to you. You would have done a proper conversion on it, which cost us money, and then put it in. And there's software now where you can just chuck it in, do a frame rate conversion as you're ripping it to QuickTime, or M4V, and then you can rip it to QuickTime and clip it even if you want to, in a different program, and then you've got these amazing PAL files to put into your offline suite, and it saves a lot of time and money. And obviously I get to keep a little copy on my drive, so I know exactly what they're working from at all times.
That's a really good point. If you do have a lot of archive material arriving and that you're downloading, remember to treat it like tapeless rushes. So they're file-based rushes. So have it all on one drive, log it, and back it up 2 times. So you've got 3 backups all the time. Because amassing that together again is going to be very difficult.
Oh yeah, at the moment, for another series I'm working on, which is 12 1 hours, and most of it's file-based, we've got a 4 terabyte drive that sits on my desk permanently. That's the backup. And then everybody who works on my team has got a terabyte lacy drive, and then we've got the backup copy at our offline facility as well. So it should be fine. Hoping it's fine.
The next clip's quite short, but I just wanted to show it because I just thought it was just really surreal. And I'm stunned, I don't know how you got hold of it. But it's just showing how the Nazis used archaeology to try and prove that their ideology went back thousands of years.
The Ahnenerbe's job is to peddle Nazi theories and then do some archaeology to try to back them up. Their efforts take them across Germany.
Der Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler.
Here, Himmler visits an Ahnenerbe dig near Berlin.
Where did you find that?
That was in the German archives, the Bundesarchiv. And they're a fairly famous collection of films, the Himmler archaeology ones, but it's so Harrison Ford and... But yeah, the story of that is fairly amusing. We had in the film, we have an actor playing Himmler. He reads some of Himmler's own letters and addresses, and one of the letters that we have our actor read is instructing the troops of exactly what he wants to find on this archaeological dig. And then, hey, look, they found it. That's the plot.
Amazing. And that's not just archive. It's not, when people think of archive, it's not always historical archive. I think the next clip we've got shows how you've cut some old archive together with some sort of animal footage that really tells a story. Do you want to talk about how
let's look.
Shall we have a look and then talk about it?
Yeah.
They believe that they were the fittest.
In Charles Darwin's theory, species adapt to their environment, and those who do so best, what he called the fittest, survive and prosper the most. This process of constant adaptation and development explains the wonderful variety of the natural world. But Darwin had nothing to say about different human races. For him, human beings are just one particularly successful species.
That's a great example of using different footage and cutting it together. The last clip is the Hermannschlacht film. Do you want to talk about that? Because this is just bizarre.
Oh, yeah, that's. I mentioned it previously. It's the one that ended up in Russia, but it tells the story of Hermann the German who repelled the Romans in the forest or something, I don't know. But he was a big favourite with Himmler. This was actually pre-Nazi, this film, but
oh, really?
Yeah, it was apparently a sort of favoured viewing within the regime.
Okay, we'll show the last clip.
The Nazis see World War II as a war between the Aryan master race, the Germans, and the lesser races, such as the Russians and other Slavs, and especially the Jews.
Very, very sinister. So, let's go back to the workflow. What would be the ideal workflow? This worked perfectly well, and I think lots of lessons have been learned, and a lot of your colleagues are now adopting this workflow as well. Like I say, we've had a couple of projects recently where they haven't done this at all, due to budget, due to lack of staff. I'm not going to name projects because they're still very dear clients, very dear for them, in fact. There was one in particular, which was a few months ago. The director cut it all himself on an editing system, his own editing system, and then unfortunately was away for the final post unavoidably. And that was very difficult. Some of the archive footage, he actually had got the original masters, and it had taken him apparently about 3 or 4 days to locate a shot on a tape that had arrived that had no time code and no logs whatsoever. And so when it came to us, because he thought we could be able to use the original from his computer, and we weren't in the end for complex reasons, we had to go through the whole process again. And even with the editor who had been through the process of trying to find it, the edit assistant, it still took a couple of days. In fact, overall, for a project of exactly the same, very similar project, same duration, similar subject material, the Conform and online, I had people working from Friday morning, all the way through the night on Friday. I had shifts, people come in changing shifts. Actually, the first night, someone pulled a 24-hour shift. So working all through the night, Saturday, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and the editor finished Tuesday. So it was about, I can't even add all that up, but it was basically sort of 3, 4, 24-hour periods ran together where we were solidly just replacing archive for that whole time. We were charging that at, obviously at full rates because we had to have people, it had a deadline, it was going out for transmission, it was for a US broadcaster, we had to hit the deadline. So we cleared it with the client, we said if you're going to get the show on air, this is what we're going to need to do. And we had teams of people working on it. We had one suite going, but we also had sub-suites going where people would dive in and help. And we had the Avid team helping as well. In order to get this show out, it literally must have taken about 12 people working constantly for that time. Because this workflow wasn't adopted, as opposed to a 2-day, very straightforward Conform. So the implications are pretty huge. We're doing another project at the moment, and some extra things which we haven't worked in this way before, but it's just an upgrade. But we're using Dropbox. So any of the low-res archive material that is downloaded is going straight into a Dropbox, which is ran by the archivist, and she's got a spreadsheet and everything's logged, and the editors and directors aren't allowed to put anything into the program unless it's in the Dropbox, because if it's in the Dropbox, she knows she's cleared it, and then it's identifiable and it's usable, and everyone can have shared access to the Dropbox. But if it's not in the Dropbox, it doesn't go in the program. So there's no random YouTube clips. If they want to use if they find a great YouTube clip, they just need to send it to her. She'll then find the original source and put it in the Dropbox. So it's not restricting people, it's helping them. And then to make that easier, we're actually also using Google Docs. So we've got a spreadsheet which we all can tap into on Google Docs, which is basically a spreadsheet that everybody can update at the same time and see who's updating where. And that's made it all very, very straightforward. Are there any questions? Any questions at all? None? Yeah, one over here.
Hi, I'm Jay Arnold from Creative England. Can I ask Jacqui, have you ever worked with any of the English regional film archives? And is there anything that those organisations can do to make their work with you easier?
I'm working with the Welsh Film Archive at the moment. I mean, you make an allowance if you know you need regional material, I think, as an archivist, and you allow greater time. I think probably for a non-archivist, if I was just an AP trying to do the same research, it might be more difficult. But I mean, I understand the problems of cost and getting the material accessible, and the cost of storing it, I guess. Because in an ideal world, everything would be viewable online. There'd be online catalogues. You'd be able to do keyword searching, which isn't always available. But obviously, that comes with a premium, and if you're not selling enough, then it's harder to fund that. Yeah, I think there is a great move to online, and there's a great move to get everything quicker.
So you need to see that. You can't go through a process of interrogating a database and you're going to see it basically on your desk.
Yeah, it makes things a lot easier. Although I think, yeah, as I said, you do make allowances for smaller and non-commercial archives, which, you know, primarily they're not commercial archives, they're there for the purpose of storing local history. But it helps if you can do a keyword search. Although obviously specialist knowledge in these regional places counts for a lot as well. We just found a great film. I'm doing a project about, it's called Stiff Upper Lip, it's for BBC Two, and we're looking at the miners' strike in 1924 and how the Welsh miners were the last to come back. And we interviewed the son of one of the miners who's in his 80s, and we found a film of the miners having a carnival to kind of all band together because they weren't going back into the pits. And his father was actually a member of the crowd, and he'd never seen the film, he didn't know it existed, but it kind of made his day. So I don't know, it's a bit of an aside, but it's sort of, really when nice. Stuff like that happens, it reminds you of, you know, what we do and what they do is a really valuable thing.
On up here? You wait for the mic.
Hi, Julie Lewis, Focal International. I'm glad to say that Jacqui Edwards is one of our researcher members. Now, do you ever have any issues with the end delivery people who say that the quality of the footage is not, you know, not what they want, or?
Rarely, to be honest. I think a lot of people, they make allowances for archive. They don't expect it to be the same quality as HD cam footage that's just been specially shot. It's more likely to be, you know, a frame rate issue, or if we're doing something in NTSC, you know, a drop frame issue that gets picked up. It's not usually the kind of picture quality that gets picked up on.
I think the biggest appeal that sort of we have collectively, I mean, some Getty are very good, and they're making very positive steps to make it even easier. Huntley archives are very good, but there are some companies out there who, and a lot of American companies as well, that are the worst offenders, and they will just send you a clip that bears no relation sometimes to the clip you've actually selected. And then that clip will be buried on a DVD of 90 minutes of material. There'll be no reference to where it is, and actually it's not even the clip you're looking for.
Yeah, quite often. I mean, that's always happened to a degree. There's always been an element of eye matching, and yeah, but tapeless isn't making things any easier necessarily.
And
not yet.
It could be, but there just needs to be there just needs to be the discipline, and the libraries need to join in. The libraries need to help. There needs to be thorough logging of the material.
I think it's a dual problem. I think the technology has advanced quicker than some of our understandings of it. I mean, it's taken me, we've been using Getty clips now. Well, I've been using them for like 7 or 8 years in digital format. But it's only really in the last 3 years that I've realised there's this problem with an NTSC, like the frame rate thing. And 5 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of walking into an offline suite with an NTSC digibeater and saying, well, there's your master, and just, well, it's all on there, don't worry about it. But that's pretty much what I was doing with the digital files, because I just simply didn't know. So there has to be a bit of give and take where we have to know what we're asking for, but the libraries have to be willing to accommodate it. And I think that's...
Or at least tell you what they're sending you.
Exactly. So, yeah, well, I think we all need a bit more training in order to make it work, and we all need to kind of pull together and keep a conversation going. And yeah. I mean, I've been lucky because I've had a lot of support. I've sat in your Avid suite and sat in your cupboards with your Avid boys, making them tell me facts. And I do that
perfectly trained.
Every facility house I go to, I make them tell me stuff. But not every archivist has the sort of luxury of time and availability of people to ask that. So, yeah, I think... But I know, I mean, Focal and Prime Focus together, you're organising training fairly soon, I think, for researchers. So, yeah, we need to do more of that. I will.
Yes, we've got Julie and Sue from Focal who are at the back, so thank you very much for coming along.
Sorry if you don't mind me doing a blatant plug, but
no,
if
if
anyone's interested in talking footage or researchers, please come to our breakfast tomorrow morning between 10 and 11 at the Crucible Theatre. There'll be quite a lot of libraries there, and hopefully the researchers. Okay.
Great. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, my next guest is Mr. Steve Cole. Steve was born in Detroit, has spent the last 17 years in the UK working on very high-profile projects even, such as BAFTA-nominated ABBA documentary and a Grizz-nominated Werner Herzog Beyond Reason. But today we are here to discuss the Lost Concert. It was quite a risk when I put this in the programme because we didn't actually know we'd be able to use it. We kind of hoped that we might, and we're here and we could. So it was I only actually announced it on Friday on Twitter. So here we are. I think before we go into it, we're going to show you the first clip. It's quite long. We're going to show you one track and some interview, and then you'll understand what we're going to be talking about. That's probably the best way to go. So will you please run the clip.
In case you don't know who this is, that's Ringo Starr.
Hello.
I love that bit.
Beethoven gotta heat it again today. Now my temperature's rising, jukebox blows a fuse. A heart-beating rhythm, soul keeps us singing a blues. Beethoven, rocking it 2 by 2. Well, now if you feel it, like it, get to the veranda, reel and rock it. Roll it over and move on up, just top of all around a reel and rock it. Roll it over, Beethoven, take these rhythm and blues.
I liked rock and roll, real rock and roll, and the Beatles brought it back. Well, Roll Over Beethoven was out in 1955. Chuck Berry's the father of rock and roll. I mean, Chuck was the man.
John Lennon later said, if you're looking for another name for rock and roll, it's Chuck Berry.
I am a fan of the Beatles. Once they came to America, they influenced me. They were so good.
What the Beatles did was they took these great American rock and roll songs and gave it their own spin, and then in America we ate it up.
Chuck Berry, oh yeah, he was rocking out, but you had to find that. And these guys came along and kind of stole from it Because you want to dip your cup in the right pool. They did the right thing.
Most of the time, I feel like the songs they covered, they did it better than the originals, you know? I think they were a great rock and roll band.
Terrific, magnificent, wonderful. What's another good word for, oh, brilliant they were. They were brilliant, I remember that. And they were. Wow.
So,
well, the first thing I would like to say is that I hope you're seeing it in the right aspect ratio, because on that, it's the wrong aspect ratio.
No.
The footage of actual concert footage is pillar boxed because it was shot 4:3. But I'm hoping you saw.
Yeah, no.
Otherwise,
like
yeah, I'll word with you after.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of things about that. If you're wondering why they made a feature of Ringo Starr, if you're wondering who this is, it's because apparently in America the female fans thought the only chance of bagging a Beatle was to go for the ugliest one. So they just went nuts about Ringo Starr. And also, you probably noticed that was all pretty makeshift. That was their very first US concert. I'm not talking about the Ed Sullivan Show, but an actual concert, February the 11th, 1964, in Washington Coliseum, which is a sports venue. So they played in the round, so they had an idea that they had to have a rotating drum, podium, and it didn't work. So they had to move it around by hand. But you notice that they let George kick off the set, which is amazing, actually, considering he wasn't really the lead singer, either of the lead singers, but you probably saw that the mic didn't work. That's just how makeshift it was. And as you watch the rest of the film, Forever After, he every time he walks up to do it, to start singing a song, he goes, hello, hello, right the way through the concert, because he just doesn't believe the mic's going to be working.
How did it come to pass?
Well, I was developing a sort of pretty low-budget BBC4 type idea about a bunch of previously unseen stills, Beatles stills, from the US. And that led us to this little gallery in New York that was showing, had a selection of private stills that had come into their possession. And they were, we can do a deal, you could use these, la la la. And then they just sort of went, but do you know that there's this collector guy that we know who has the tape of the entire concert? Some of the stills we were looking at were related to that very first US trip. And we were like, no. I mean, I hadn't even bothered to look online because we weren't imagining a film about the first concert per se. And there were actually, when I did take the trouble to look, there were actually 5 tracks from the US concert, the Washington Coliseum concert, out there, taken from a bad copy of a copy of a copy sometime, who knows when. But anyway, so this guy he lives in New York, he's a collector, he refuses to ever, kind of like admit who he is. But he had given them permission somehow to have possession of the tape, which they passed on to us. And then suddenly the whole thing got a lot bigger.
So you came to see me with this very precious tape, which we codenamed Drum.
Yeah, it was all very close.
So it's about 2 years ago, and we were very excited. So
yeah, I should explain why it was so cloak and dagger, really, because they had a master tape which they allowed us to take into a post-production house in New York, provided one of them accompanied us, and as it was being run off, they walked around the corner and someone was making a copy. So from that point, it was sort of like no actual name reference to the Beatles, and there you go. It was all very, very sort of under wraps.
So you came to us with the tape. It had been copied to. It had been copied to.
It was shot on 1-inch quad.
Yeah.
It was shot obviously on big tube cameras. So and that tape had been copied onto, for some reason, SP, which is the tape was handed to us.
SP. And we converted it to PAL. And first look we had of it was with our restoration guy, Rich Watson, who is a great character. and he's a massive Beatles fan as well. And it was actually in pretty good nick.
Yeah, he said it was some of the best footage he'd seen, and probably because the master had only been played twice, as far as we knew. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for use in broadcast. The concert itself was filmed, which was unusual for concerts at the time, but because it was in a sports venue, what was fairly commonplace in the US at that point was to do closed-circuit cinema release of boxing matches primarily, and the Washington Coliseum was very much a boxing venue and an ice hockey type venue, and so they were used to putting a number of cameras around as a stage, boxing ring, and so someone had the bright idea of doing that for this, and then it was, so they had actually a release over a weekend where it was shown
In cinemas.
In cinemas across the US, yeah.
And that was the last time this footage.
I presume it was the last time that tape was ever played, and it was certainly the last time.
So other than
the entire concert, which is 12 tracks, so other than the 5 that were out there, none of the other stuff had been seen.
So other than the fact that we've seen it on a big screen, you are the only people to see this on a big screen. So
Yeah, I should make it clear that Apple Core, not Apple Computers, who I have worked with before, decided this time they didn't want to work with us, and they had their own plans for it. And last year they released the concert on iTunes. So some of you may have now seen the entire concert on iTunes. But our view was that there was merit in seeing how the first cinema audiences saw it in the US, which of course was on a big screen. So that's what we worked towards.
Yeah. So the restoration, so it didn't need that much work. What we had to do is we had to take it into, we've got a variety of, we've got quite a big restoration setup in the UK and in India, because we're an Indian-owned facility. We've got a device called the Phoenix. So we applied, we cut it into individual shots, the ones that needed the work. We applied clarity, which reduces noise and grain reduction. Well, obviously no grain because it wasn't shot on film, but reduces that sort of look. Then we could increase or decrease the shots as we needed to. Then we applied a very subtle sharpening tool to sharpen up the shots. Some of them were a little bit soft. It was rendered, played out as tape, and then it was taken into MTI, where we did frame-by-frame line removal and video dropout. But it wasn't a vast amount. The biggest thing we had to do was that we did some some sort of hidden VFX work, because it was shot on tape at the time, because of the way that the lights work.
Well, it's the tube cameras. When you get a bright glare on a tube camera, it doesn't produce a flare. It does, but it can't read it at all, so it goes black. So you'd have a situation with a nice, 1960s, 1950s style brushed steel mic, of the look that we all like so much, with John and Paul or whatever singing into it, and there's a flare here, which would be all over their faces, or from the mic stand, so that was the biggest thing, apart from the next thing we're going to go on to, that would make it feel dramatically different from watching a TV documentary. We really felt that for the big screen, it was worth doing that sort of stuff to make it look the best quality. Yeah, a bit more like a film that was shot for movie theaters, even though it was the way they watched it with the flair there. But we wanted to give a more up-to-date cinematic experience.
Yeah, a real view. That required quite a lot of frame-by-frame hand painting out. So you'll see some of that work shortly. I think the thing that made the biggest difference, which you said, is the grading test, because you'd been to talk to...
Yeah, we'd been to a rival company, we won't name them, and they did a grading test for us, which, it just didn't come up with the right answers for us. I mean, I can't explain why. They're the same tools as far as I know that you have, but it didn't seem to me to make enough of a difference. I was sure that it must be possible to get more out of that picture, and so we did a grading test. It looked great when I was up at Prime Focus. We actually took that clip back to our offline suite, played it in, and, you know, actually the editor was like, shit, you know, you can see the audience. You know, the stuff we've been working with was so milky that, you know, on the screens we had, you just couldn't see the tiered audience, you know. And so it was, you know, a really big breakthrough.
I had a chat to Jerry this morning, and he said basically the original footage was very flat, and so he had to increase the contrast to bring out the midtones. And then he put windows over individual band members in the audience and just worked on each individual section to try and bring it out where it needed to. He added a subtle vignette to draw the eye to the centre of the stage. We had to keep moving the windows because the people were moving around quite a bit. So the concert took about half a day to grade, and the rest of it took about a day and a half.
I think it took a bit longer than that, but...
Of
course we were vignetting it partly to draw the eye to the stage, but also because, you know, we needed to bring that audience up so you could see them, but we didn't want to overexpose the stage, which after all was lit. So, you know, it was...
We've got a little bit of split screen, a short section which shows you the difference. So you can bring them on the next clip, please.
Not sure they heard that.
Can you run the next clip?
Rocking into battle. Well, now if you feel it like it, get to the veranda, reel and rock it. Roll it over and move on up, just tap up on the veranda, reel and rock it. Roll it over the Beethoven, take these to the blues.
And this is a section which shows a little bit of the microphone. You can see the black on the left-hand side and see where we've taken it away. Again on the middle, see the black around the middle of the mic.
That's not the worst offender, actually, but there you can see it there.
Yeah,
obviously, when the guitar head moves across the mic, that's a considerable headache. Not for me, except for pointing out the bits that they hadn't got quite right.
Yes, it's quite complicated to do. It gives you quite a nice difference of the grade as well. The grade made a massive difference apart from the effects book. It was a combination of work that made it really stand out.
Obviously, what happened, you know, as we graded it, that flare got darker, so it was even more apparent than on the more flat footage.
Let's have a little chat about just some of the. We've got one more. We've got two more clips to show actually. So we've got two more clips, but let's just have a little chat about the system. So it was talk about the audio. I love that story.
The audio in the well, we interviewed John Lynn, who's the son of the Coliseum owner. I mean, he actually said that his dad basically he was more or less, you know, a sports promoter. The venue, which is still there in Washington, but it's now a car park, was largely known, as I say, for sports. So his father apparently came home and he's like dealing with a 9-10-year-old son, and he was like, "Have you ever heard of the Beatles?" He went, "Are you kidding?" And he said, "Well, good, because I've just booked them for next week or whatever." You know, it was that fast that they took off in the States, and this film is really just a sort of slice of music history. It doesn't claim to be anything more than that. But what he explained to us was that they were using the PA system for their vocals, for the boxing announcer. So they really wasn't set up for concerts at all. Also, they arrived with their own, you know, amps, which were tiny, you know, compared to what you'd see on stage now. I mean, there were 9,000 people in there, so, you know, it's a fairly big space to fill, but that's all they had, those little amps you can see on stage. And they didn't have any monitors, so they weren't hearing themselves at all.
They're amazingly in tune.
Yeah, well, Mark Ronson said they must have been playing on muscle memory when he was one of our interviewees just to explain, and, you know, he must be right, because, you know, we also interviewed people who were in that audience, and they said, you know, if you weren't in the front two rows, you couldn't hear it. And yet, most of the time they played in tune. There's one song where Paul, it's actually I Want to Hold Your Hand, which those of you who know will remember actually has quite a high pitch, at a given point in the chorus, and he does go off there, but, fair enough. He couldn't hear himself, and the rest of the time they played it really well. Louise Harrison is, George's sister, is another of the interviewees, and what happened was, subsequent to that concert, they were offered what was the very first stadium concert tour ever in the world, which was in America, around American stadiums that same summer they came back.
With bigger speakers.
With bigger speakers, I hope. I don't know, maybe not. But Louise Harrison, who was at that concert, our concert, and then at those concerts, she said she went backstage and George was tuning up. And she said, why are you bothering? Because no one can hear anything you're playing. And he said, because I've got a fear that one day all the screaming will stop and they'll hear us and we'll be all completely out of tune. But actually, then they were playing in tune. I think later on, when they perhaps were a bit tired of touring, it came to the last tour. The story goes in the last tour anyway, that by the time they got to Japan and they played, the audience just sat politely with their hands in their laps and listened. And so you could have heard a pin drop and they were all playing out of tune and they realised, but I guess by that stage they were pretty sick of it all.
Shall we show another clip?
Yeah.
We've got we can hear the whole track. We've got a track to play. It's 3 minutes long. Do you want to hear a bit of it or do you want to hear all of it? Okay, all right. Here's the next clip.
This is a song. This is a song that was popular in America about a couple of years ago. It was recorded by a group called the Isley Brothers. Very good. Anyway, we'd like to sing the song that they made famous. It's called Twist and Shout.
We're running out of time. We've got one more clip, but we've got about 5 minutes left. So the clip's 4 minutes. Can we go a little bit over? Tiny little bit. Is there anything else in particular that you want? There's so much we could talk about, and but is there anything in particular that you want to?
Well, I should probably explain a little bit of what's going on when we're seeing interviewees.
Oh yeah, the interviewee thing with the screen. That's
amazing.
amazing.
Because it was a sort of twin problem that I was confronted with, and that was, number one, we couldn't use any other performance footage of the Beatles. You can't without Apple's permission, not with sync. Or you can't even use stuff with Beatles tracks playing over it that's not sync. You know, there's not performance. So, although obviously we sourced other archive material, newsreel stuff, we had to have a certain amount, a lot actually, of B-roll to cover interviews created from the footage itself. And I didn't want to, although it seemed obvious to use projection as a way of doing that, I didn't want to do, I've done it many times before, and probably lots of other people here have too, of someone sitting in a movie theatre watching, and that's okay for what it is, but it just felt wrong and too cliched for this, but I still liked the idea of projection. And then I was talking to sort of my favourite cameraman, who was the DOP on this, about another project, and he sent me a clip of something he'd been working on where there was a presenter in a studio standing next to a screen that was having back projection on it. And I said, can you shoot through the screen and see the person on the other side? And he said, I don't know, we didn't try it. That wasn't what we were about doing. And so I said, well, let's do a test, just with some Perspex, and we just sprayed it with hairspray or something, I can't remember what it was, and projected on it, and it kind of worked. And so he contacted the producer of the show he'd worked on, and he said it's called a hollow screen, well, as in hologram. It's supposed to have...
It's like Star Trek.
Yeah, it's supposed to have... Yes,
on the holodeck.
It's supposed to have beads of Perspex embedded in it. I'm not 100% convinced it has. You can't see them, but maybe that's the point. But anyway, so what we did was we sat the interviewees the other side of the screen, we projected onto it, and we filmed through the screen, and occasionally you can see that light come through, which is those are really, I really like those moments when you can tell that it's projected on there.
What I really like about it is that you're really just seeing that your interviewees just, their jaws drop and they're just completely absorbed. They're not as aware that there's a camera in their face.
Yeah, we absolutely wanted.
We
wanted to get people's genuine reactions to it. Co-production partners, of course, as they will, try to steer us towards using celebrity interviews, and I was quite reluctant to do that, but I'd already come up with this system of creating the B-roll just for the interviewees, that were there, and so it was easy to apply that, as I think it was a saving grace, to apply that then to the celebrity names. And so I said, I will do it, but I'll only do it in as much as they're reacting to the footage. So that's the way we approached using the dreaded celebrity interview.
Okay, one more tiny thing, and this has to be quick because otherwise we're going to run out of time. And I think we have to show the clip. But just the projection in the cinema, in the venue.
Oh, in the auditorium itself. Yeah, well, it just seemed sensible to extrapolate that to projecting elsewhere. And so we did it. We projected on the exterior of the Shoreham Hotel where they stayed, where they were in Washington, but also on the interior of the Washington Coliseum.
Because it's still there, looking pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's a bit grubby. It was a garbage depot, and now it's a car park. So it's a listed building, but it's just there it is. So we projected on the interior and the exterior, and one of the most remarkable things, these things just happen sometimes when you're filming. A woman walked down the street, and I recognized her from a still photograph of the Washington Coliseum, and I went, "Aren't you the person in this photograph?" And she said, "Yeah, I am. I live across the street. Do you want to come and see my Beatles collection?" And so I said, "This is unexpected," but I did. And then I said, "Would you do an interview?" And she said, well, yeah, okay. And so we just got this awesome interview because she was there. She'd lived there her whole life, and she was there living across the street as a teenager when there were just crowds around the block, and it was chaos. So that was a really nice moment.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute privilege to show this material, and it's been great to work with you as well.
And everyone, everyone thinks that John really rocks, and he did in Twist and Shout, but I know we don't like Paul McCartney much, do we? But watch him sing this. It's
he
awesome.
nails this. So there's a bit of interview, and then there's it plays out with Long Tall Sally. So I'm going to go and sit and watch it from over there, so I can watch it on the big screen. And this is the last clip. So enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think they were a little overwhelmed. I got the feeling that it was like all these people.
As much as the audience enjoyed seeing them, they enjoyed, you know, the interaction with the audience.
Can we turn the lights down a bit?
It's just unbridled energy. They were getting it back from the audience, feeding off the audience. You know, Paul's wearing it well. He certainly knows where to shake it, and he sings his ass off, and he rocked it out.
And these guys are learning really fast about how to hold on to a huge audience and entertain them.
They virtually exploded overnight, bigger than anybody that I've ever seen, and I've been in the music business all this time since then. I've never seen anybody pop like that. Within a month or two, I mean, they were bigger than bubblegum.
This next song will definitely be the last one. We've already, yeah. We've already overrun our time, so we'd like to, before we go, we'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thank you. Thank you all. We'd like to do another song, which is quite an old song in America, but it's one that's always been a big favorite of ours. I'm on a time, Mary, out of the time. Better let the music, better got a lot of fun, oh baby. Yeah, my baby. Ooh, baby. Somebody night, yeah. I saw you, John, already said. Saw Mary coming in, he's back in the alley, baby. Yeah, my baby. Ooh, baby. Somebody night. Wonderful audience for the first American concert of the Beatles. Thank you. Thank you so much for being so...
Wow. And I should say, and that's also thanks to Chris Hunt from Iambic Productions for putting a show that. So. And that's it. Thank you very much for coming.